we'll continue with the theory of refuge. Refuge is often categorized into some sort of ritual involving ceremonies, but which is, I'm not saying is not correct. I'm not saying that. Of course, it's ritual and ceremonies does help. That's for individual path dweller, for him or her, creating a right atmosphere and speaking, uttering the words like, I take refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, so on and so forth. It enhances the determination and, sort of confirmation. But the refuge is much more than the ceremony. As we spoke this morning, fundamentally, refuge is an acceptance. It is, yes, it is an acceptance. It is basically an acceptance of a certain truth. For instance, if we accept that the Buddha's teaching that all compounded things are impermanent, when we accept everything that is compounded are impermanent, all defiled emotions are pain or cause of pain. That is an acceptance. You are basically surrendering to this. You are bound. Bow down is very, very theistic language. It's I'm not saying it's wrong to use. Yes, of course we can use. We can even have the ceremony of bowing down physically, like prostrations and so on and so forth. But the real refuge is accepting that truth. And generally speaking, not only accepting that truth, but also the expounder of that truth, in this case the Buddha. So therefore we take refuge to the Buddha, and then accepting the community, basically joining that community, surrendering to that community, which is the Sangha. That is how the general sort of, how should I put it? Theory of refuge, isn't it? In the Mahayana, the acceptance of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are slightly more, how should I put it, grandiose, such as accepting that no matter what kind of defilement we have, we have all these endless emotions, but the true nature of our mind is the Buddha. So it's much more, it's much grander And also, when we talk about taking refuge to the Dharma, in the Mahayana, accepting the truth that everything that is projected by our mind is inherently non-existent. As we have been repeating this over and over again. Basically, samsara, nirvana, quality of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, all of this do not exist inherently. The path, as it is spoken in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Hearts Sutra. In the Prajnaparamita, there is 4 stages of going beyond gate, para, samgate. The second, gate onwards. Second onwards, the gate, and then paragate, parasamgate. These constitutes the Mahayana character, so to speak. So, as long as somebody, without any ceremony, without any formal sort of ritual, accepts that all compounded things are impermanent, all defiled emotions are basically cause of the suffering, or they are suffering. All phenomena has no inherently existing nature. Nirvana is beyond extreme. If you can accept that, you are taking refuge. And our own nature of mind is the Buddha. Then you are taking refuge. Now, to elaborate our points a little bit more, we were talking about what defines or how Mahayana refuge has a sort of a different character that is different from Sarvakayanas, for instance. And we were talking about one of them being having the right view of Shunyata. Now the next one is the refuge. The Mahayana refuge is again the character of the Mahayana refuge is very much to do with 2 kinds of accumulation. The accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. Actually, probably more so in the Mahayana than the other vehicle, but generally I should point out the Buddhist path has to have, it doesn't matter which vehicle you are following, has to have the 2 accumulations. No Buddhist path, for instance, even in the Sarvakayana tradition, just a path that merely believes in merit making, such as truth, such as generosity, discipline, and so on and so forth, is not a complete path. So this is why in the Sarvakayana, teachings such as Abhidharma is taught. In the Abhidharma, very extensive teachings on the wisdom. So accumulation of the wisdom is very important. So also in, for instance, like Sharvakayana tradition, we had methods such as giving alms, making offerings to the venerable objects with flowers, incense, etc., giving alms to renounce sin. But there is also the method of accumulation of wisdom through shamatha vipassana, which is a very big part of the Sharvakayana tradition. By the way, this is something that I like to, I keep forgetting. I need to point this out. Sharvakayana, as we speak here, we need to sort of be careful here, because as we speak, when we talk about the Sharvakayana, we are not necessarily talking about the Theravada, because within the Theravada system, they have a complete path to achieve the arhat, the attainment, and all the way to the parinirvana, the Buddha's attainment. So, just technically, academically speaking, this is something that we need to ignore. Going back to merit and wisdom. The merit and wisdom are really, they really are almost like interdependent. In order to have wisdom, one needs merit. And when we talk about merit, we are talking about basically ability to understand the truth, ability to maintain the understanding of the truth, or ability to have enthusiasm to the truth, like even appetite, curiosity, wanting to hear the Dharma, wanting to contemplate on the Dharma. That, basically, that is the merit. It's not really an ordinary luck. When we talk about luck, I think many times we are talking about something related to materialism, like gain, power, fame. If you are lucky, then you have that. But from the spiritual point of view, if you have lots of gain, lots of fame, lots of power, it may be a hindrance to the spiritual path. So from the spiritual point of view, maybe it's unlucky to have these. So merit, when we talk about merit, we are talking about merit to understand the Dharma, merit to live nobly, a wholesome living, noble living, harmonious living, sort of simply or gently living. And that's merit. And this we bodhisattvas acquire through many methods, such as the 5 different kinds of paramitas, like generosity, like applying discipline, practicing patience or tolerance, etc. And then the wisdom, when we talk about wisdom, accumulation of wisdom, we are talking about basically being able to understand the truth, understanding the truth. or in other words, not getting influenced by your delusion. Important to note is when we talk about wisdom, we are not talking about a state of being very intelligent or very smart or very quick-witted. Again, you can be very intelligent, very gifted, smart, but if none of this, if any of these is not freeing you from delusion, pride, ego, principles, inhibitions, then that kind of smartness, that kind of intelligence is not really a wisdom, it's just worldly smart, that's it. So wisdom here, you need to underline this, the wisdom here is basically a state of mind that is not influenced by obsession, delusion, dualistic distinctions. For instance, just to give you an example, if you are saying good night to somebody you like, you love tonight, even if there is a certain moment of, I might not see him or her tomorrow. This may be the last. This is it. Because the nature of impermanence can hit us anytime. Even if you have a momentary awareness of that, we are talking about a mind that is beginning to become free from this delusion that I'm going to see her or him for sure. That basically mind that is closer to the truth is the wisdom. These two, as I said earlier, they have to sort of complement each other. Without a merit, wisdom is not possible. But also, without the wisdom, merit-making methods are very blind and very slow, very, very long-winded. For instance, if, let's say, generosity, if you practice generosity, if you give a glass of water to somebody, that, with the right motivation of quenching somebody's suffering of thirst and, really genuine, with a genuine kindness, if you give a glass of water, that has a merit. That can have a big merit. But even better, if you give a glass of water to somebody with a thought that I, the giver, a glass of water, a substance that to give, and the object who is asking for water, all this is just my projection. The act of generosity is just my projection. It is just like a reflection of the moon in the water. It is like a dream. It is an illusion. Illusion, I didn't say it does not exist. It is. There is definitely appearance is definitely there, but it doesn't have a truly existing nature. Now, if you even have that intellectually during the act of generosity, that generosity will have so much more. I forgot in the sutras and the shastras, it is again and again, Buddha have said, 10,000, 20,000 more times merit. So you will, so this is why, for instance, like dedication is a very big thing in the Mahayana. Whatever you do, after doing this good deed, you dedicate the merit. Okay, so this is again the amazing skill. Or this is the sort of the savviness of the Mahayana. Okay, you accumulate a merit. Okay, such as a very small, sort of very meager, such as giving a glass of water. That's it, it's a very small act. Water is cheap, it's economical, it's nothing that, what do you call it? Not so much hardship, there's not so much sacrifice involved. But you can turn this into a very big act. Let's, for instance, beginning with, I shall give this water for the benefit of enlightening all sentient beings. May this act of giving water be cause of enlightening all sentient beings. With that right motivation, already the act of this meager act of generosity has become a billion times bigger. So you already make this merit big, and then you dedicate the merit. So you already, so a small act of giving water is already multiplied by the right motivation. Now you are dedicating even that merit. So with one merit you are creating a second, or actually more merit, by dedicating it to the sentient beings. And then, as I said, if you apply the wisdom, whatever I'm dedicating the merit, it is just like a mirage. It's just like a reflection of the moon in the water. Just an illusion. It does not truly exist. If you can apply that wisdom, then that small act of giving a glass of water has become complete Mahayana path. Actually, many Mahayana masters of the past have said, to do a virtuous deed is so easy, actually, as you can see. It's just that we are so lethargic, lazy, not mindful. So, for some reason, we don't do it. Actually, doing a good deed is very, very, very easy and powerful. So, again here, coming back to the refuge, the act of refuge in the Mahayana is adorned with the two kinds of accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom. So that's one aspect. And then the next one is compassion. A very big, it's the spine of Mahayana Buddhism, isn't it? Like basically, total empathy, totally putting oneself into someone else's shoes, totally understanding such kind of act of compassion, which probably I will explain you a little bit later. But it will come, I think, in the later chapters, because compassion is a very big study. But just for now, keep in mind, the compassion is not just a mere sympathy in the Mahayana. Strictly speaking, Mahayana's compassion actually draws from understanding of the shunyata. One good example given in the sutra. A mother had 2 children, and one child has so-called real problem, let's say headache, stomach ache, whatever. Mother is very concerned. The other child has delusional problem. Let's say that the other child is crazy. Imagine things. Mother will have extra concern for this child because mother knows whatever is going through in his or her head actually does not exist. But, how do you solve this? This is really difficult. This is sort of real, non-existing problem. You understand? Whatever is going on in his or her head is so strong and it's so delusional and it's breaking up everything. So mother has it's something like that. When the bodhisattvas understand the illusory aspect of the phenomena, the bodhisattvas look at to those beings who have not yet understood the illusory aspect of the life, but who are still very delusional about life, who still thinks that the life truly exists, everything is there, everything is, the hope, fear, gain, loss, happy, unhappy, attention, being ignored, all these are, so real to these ordinary beings. Yet the Bodhisattva knows that it's not a big deal. But, your children think like that. This is one sort of a more easier way to understand the Mahayana compassion. Mahayana's compassion is really not a mere sympathy. Mahayana's compassion is so deeply rooted to the understanding of the emptiness. So this is what I said yesterday. People can say superficially all religions has this, similarity. That they can say, but fundamentally different. Buddhist concept of compassion is different from Christian. Buddhist compassion is different from in many other religions. Why? Because Buddhist compassion is based on the notion of shunyata, emptiness. So important to know this. If you can understand this, you will understand, for instance, the Buddhist methods such as Pure Land School, Dr. Amitabh. I'm just inserting this here because there's a beautiful and really good tradition of Pure Land School in the Chinese Mahayana Buddhism. I believe that I have noticed that, and it's so important. You have to uphold this one. You cannot afford to lose that tradition because the Pure Land School practice is very, very much based on the compassion that is rooted to the shunyata. Don't lose that, because if you lose that, your Amitabha is not different from any kind of religious heaven. Or you believe in this God called Buddha, Amitabha, you trust him, call his name, and you will be saved. It's like a, Buddhist evangelist. We could do that. I'm sure it has benefit. The moment you mention the name of the Buddha, in somebody's ear, you are creating a connection. You are creating that sort of circumstance. That's why we build statues also, by the way. We build statues outside, very shining, big ones, supposedly to create that cause and condition, subliminal sort of, influence. Actually, not only statues, we should be sometimes shouting Namo Buddha in the middle of subway or something. Actually, like a chant, loudly, mantras. But again, just have to be careful because we don't want to also ruin the image of the Buddhists. So have to be kind of also skillful here. Okay. Now the next one. This really sounds like a Mahayana chauvinism that you have to hear this. But before saying this, I need to tell you, as I have been emphasizing, remember, when we talk about Sharvakayana, we are not necessarily talking about like Burma or Sri Lanka, so on and so forth. We are talking about those who wishes to only be happy with the state of arhat. Let's put it this way, simply. Those who dare not aim for Buddha state. Those who just wish to, 3 years, even that is already too long, but I can bear that. 3 countless eons, forget it. And I just want to be enlightened myself. The other people, it's not my business. Anyway, in the process of trying to help others, I could get distracted. I could become very, I could get egoistic. I could lose my own path. I'm very, helping others is very dangerous. It's a risky business, Helping others is the most risky business because you begin to have followers suddenly. And then you have suddenly people who want to take photographs with you. And then suddenly, people who wants all kinds of things, who wants to, I don't know. And then, slowly, phenomena such as a groupie, the cult situation slowly begin to arise. And then, naturally, as a path to Allah, we have hope, we have fear, we don't want to do bad. When I was, these guys, when they were organizing the teaching, I have asked, are there any monks coming to the teaching? They said yes. And I said, oh God. Monks and nuns are going to be here, which means I have to behave. I have to be careful what I say. Because, if I misbehave, I may lose my disciples. I may have less people wanting to take selfie photos. And that's a big loss. After a while, when you become famous, if you have 100 students, even losing one is a big deal. And even if you have 200 extra more is not enough. So human mind is very difficult. So you know what I mean? Don't you think arhat state is very tempting? Let's not go into this helping other, this risky business. Let's just, I'll go to my mountain and I'll just close my door and, I'll pray for them. Okay, how's that? I'll pray for them, but I'll mind my own business. And actually, there's something that's, I have to say, I'm so attracted myself to the Arhat. You know what? One of the main things, I'm not going to harm them. See, if I stay in the retreat, in the mountain, for one day, on that day you are safe. You understand? You are free from me. So on that day you are safe. But when I'm not harming you, so Sharvakayana, one of the principal practices of the Sharvakayana is not harming others. So I will not harm. Okay, probably I will pray a little bit for your well-being. I might chant, mantras such as Om Ye Dharma Hetu Prabhava, so on and so forth. But you are enlightenment, you should do it yourself. And three lifetimes, that's already big for me. So for those kind of people, Mahayana is addressing to these kind of people. Yeah, I think somebody raised this question this morning. This is very important. This does not include we are not talking about the Theravada system or anything. We are talking about the lesser motivation that is already driven by sort of lesser goal, basically. To them, okay, this is the next one. Bodhisattvas are often referred as heir of the Buddha. But arhats are not necessary. Arhats, I don't know whether you have the right, or you have the Chinese, I'm sure the Chinese have this word. Nian te, hearing, shangwen. What does that mean?
Sheng is sound, wen is hear.
Yes, that's it. Shangwen. Arhats path is hearing, the path of hearing. So we sometimes refer them as the children of Buddha's speech. So it's a bit like this, okay. Yeah, children of Buddha's speech. So a king can train a minister's son or any kind of other people. Really, with a warfare, art of war, art of economy, art of leadership, blah, 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 whatever. But at the end, only the crown prince will become the king. You understand? So likewise, the bodhisattvas are supposedly the real heir of the Buddha. Now this is, you have to really listen carefully to this one. This is not actually Mahayana bluffing about this. The reason, there is a really good reason. The reason is what the bodhisattvas are doing already from the time that they took the bodhisattva vow is, small it may be, but it is emulating what Buddha thinks and what Buddha does. So actually they are worthy, because Buddha thinks in terms of all sentient beings. Buddha thinks in terms of the Buddhahood, whereas arhats don't. So the heir of the Buddha, the bodhisattvas are already acting as the future king, groomed as a future king, basically Buddha in making. This is the we are still talking about the refuge. And as part of the refuge, we are talking about a person who takes the refuge, which is the difference, sort of the quality of the person who takes the refuge. In the Bodhisattva case, because he or she is heir of the Buddha, therefore his or her sort of act of taking refuge is different from Sharvakayana, Sharvakayana refuge. So yeah. And I think we already talked briefly about the selflessness of the person and the phenomena, which will again come in a more extended way later. So I'm not going to repeat this here. Okay, I will let you ask some questions. Then we will have a short break again.
During the break, there's a question. Is it the view or the motivation that determines if a person has capacity to follow the Travayana or Mahayana path? For example, a person may have the faith and confidence in non-duality and emptiness of self and phenomena, but he or she only has the intention to practice for self-liberation.
Yeah, that's not possible. If he or she has the inclination to the both selflessness of phenomena and this person would most likely be their motivation will be much grander eventually.
I have two questions. Would you say that emptiness can be the same, the space between the two thoughts? Second,
not necessarily. That is one technique that sometimes we use, but not necessarily.
Question: any comments on spiritual teachers like Osho or Adyashanti or Muji or Eckhart Tolle, who create their own spiritual teachings with their own followers, who encourage awakening or enlightenment?
I have a lot of comments on this one. Right at the beginning I told you, Buddha, all the teachings of the Buddha, he taught not because he knew the subject, but because of his compassion, he taught. Out of compassion. So This is a very big question. I don't know how to begin. So what I'm saying is, packaging is never an issue. Packaging is a very business thing. You want to sell your product, so you package it very, very well. And then you say, hey, buy this. That's how you package. So originally, you give teachings out of compassion, not because you are trying to sell it. So the packaging was not necessary. Also, the other thing is that when Buddha taught out of compassion, and also he knew how to communicate with the infinite sentient beings, corresponding to their needs, their capacities, their faculties, so on and so forth. But that's, for those who are not enlightened, or those who still has either the job of teaching, or those who are sort of willing, are now taking this sort of, if you like, industry of teaching spiritual path, then I think packaging ends up becoming kind of important. This is kind of important to hear. I don't know, I think in general, especially, I can only speak about Tibetan Buddhism because I'm quite familiar with them. I don't know about other Buddhist traditions, but I have a doubt that they are sort of similar. Somehow, we are not so good at packaging to different time and different markets, so to speak. Not so good at this. So it's very interesting. Okay, so it's like this, okay? Let's say this is Buddhism, okay? This water. Lots of wisdom in it. Mindfulness, compassion, tolerance, blah, 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 all kinds of things. So now, a very shrewd spiritual salesperson comes. And he puts a little bit here, okay, in this. And that packages so well. And this packaging involves even the art of, this is nothing to do with Buddhism. You understand what I mean? This is secular mindfulness. Buddha? No. We have nothing to do with the Buddha. This is scientific, actually. So they package this, and then they use a small wisdom, and then they sell it. And then the followers, even the followers from traditional Buddhist societies like the Tibetans and the Bhutanese, for instance, wow! How come our Buddhism don't have this? You understand? I have met so many of these, and this, usually I'm quite good with my temper. But when this happens, I feel like beating them up. It's really sad. It's really, really sad. You can challenge me, but if you have read, for instance, like Power of Now, the book, I'm sure some of you may have read, I would say more than like 80% is plagiarized from Shantadeva's works. Baba Viveka's work. But of course, you don't mention the Asian jargons, Bodhisattva, these unpronounceable names, Vipassana. What is that? You don't use these jargons. You use things like power of now. We use mindfulness, stuff like that. Stuff that will really be so well packaged and be bought by people like Almond or Almond Resorts, right? Do you have Almond Resorts? Okay, whatever, Four Seasons Resorts. You understand? Spas, Four Seasons spas. But one thing though, one good news I should tell you. One good thing. All this packaging, if you look into it, they have never really managed to put the emptiness in it. Because emptiness is useless. You don't want to, invite, Four Seasons spa, 5-star spas, won't advise, come to our hotel, come to our spas. We have the most relaxing massage, head massage, shoulder massage, and a bit of emptiness. In oneself. So this is the emptiness is a really quite an important thing actually. This will save us, I feel. But this is true. Do you know that? I don't know how many of you have been to the Vipassana that you know today. There are so many Vipassanas. Vipassanas that are taught in Burma, Sri Lanka, Thailand by the monks. Yes, authentic, really. I'm sure there are different versions, but coming, as a Buddhist, it is a Buddhist method. It's coming from a Buddhist monastery. It's coming from the Buddhist monk. But so many so-called, we have to be careful here because in about 50 years' time, people will think Vipassana is nothing to do with the Buddhism. You can go to Japan, for instance, Japanese tea ceremony. Japanese tea ceremony? Many Japanese don't even realize it's something Buddhist. For instance, Japanese, like Japanese exercise, Japanese poetry, like haiku. That's a Buddhist practice. It's basically a meditation. Meditation does not necessarily have to be sitting straight. This is, and again, Zen Buddhism is Mahayana Buddhism. So in the Mahayana Buddhism, because of the grand view, the method is abundance. Meditation is not necessarily sitting straight on a cushion. Meditation can be done through performing tea ceremony. Now it's called tea ceremony, but it is, basically, because have you tasted that tea? Actually, it's nothing special. I actually don't like that tea so much, that green tea. But with all the hoo-ha, going like this, like that, and this, bowing down. After all that, the tea is nothing that special. But it's the whole mindfulness thing. And when we are talking about mindfulness, in the spa, 5-star spas, what do they teach you? They mainly teach you how to relax. Buddhists should not, especially Mahayana people, should not care about whether you are relaxed or not. Relaxation is not your aim. You should write this down. You should tattoo it on your body. To relax is not your aim. What is our aim? Liberation, nirvana, enlightenment. Actually, if you do it properly, the vipassana, if you do it properly, it does not create relaxation. It actually creates constipation. Oh, am I worried? Am I distracted? Oh, I think I'm distracted. No, I'm always distracted. How can I ever not get distracted? So in the monasteries, in a really genuine monastery situation, when a disciple cries that I cannot concentrate, I really cannot concentrate, master is so happy, saying that, oh, finally there's this guy who really loathes distraction. This is a good beginning. So that is my general answer to this question. Okay, you take a break.